Welcome to Paperweights, the podcast where two self-proclaimed gym rats and shooting enthusiasts delve into the world of literature with a sprinkle of humor. Although their biceps could crush a walnut, don't let that intimidate you. They also have a nerdy side. Mike and Brandon have a voracious appetite for reading, particularly in the fantasy genre, and they want to share their passion with you. So grab your protein shake and your favorite novel and join us for a humorous and insightful journey into the world of books with Paperweights.
Welcome back to another episode of the Paperweights. I am your host, Brandon. Today I am joined by Justin.
Hello, Brandon. It's good to be back.
And we have a special guest today. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey everyone, this is Gary Honda. I am the admin of the Brandon Sanderson fan page on Instagram, Cosmere Junkie. There are other such pages on TikTok and YouTube. But basically, I just make memes and jokes about the books that book readers understand if you're a Brandon Sanderson fan.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so when did you first get into any Sanderson novels?
Yeah, I was 16 or 17 in high school, and my uncle told me I should read The Way of Kings, and that was all he had read. He hadn't read any other Sanderson, but he really liked The Way of Kings and got me into it. And over time, I became more Cosmere aware. I think I read the first couple of books, and then realized that Mistborn was connected and all these other books, and got into it. Went down the rabbit hole, and now I think I've read more than my uncle by quite a large margin.
And Justin, when did you get into
Sanderson? So I started with Mistborn when I think it first came out. So I did that whole trilogy. I think I saw it in like a sci-fi book club magazine or something. I was like, hey, new book. And so I started reading that, and it was really good. It's like Mistborn's probably my favorite Sanderson that I've read. And then I've read others. Yeah, I'm not quite as caught up on all of y'all, but I've read Way of Kings and some other ones. The ones with the Starfighter, that's not Cosmere, but that one's good.
I think that's a Cytoverse.
Yeah, it's like I forget the name of it. It's fun.
Yeah.
That series I haven't read yet. And of course, I got into it after Justin read Mistborn, and this was back when we were in college. So like I think Mistborn came out in 2006, and so right between those years or whatever, he said, "Hey, I've read these books. You should read them too." And I read them, and I was like, "Okay, that's unique. It's like Victorian era high fantasy."
Yeah.
So, all right. So before we dive into everything, if you are like me or know anybody that have illustrious beards, then you might want to head over to our sponsor's site, mudcatwhiskers.com. They do sell other products than beard products. So they sell soy candles that come in the scents of any of the oils, beard oils they sell. And they are local to me in Youngsville, Louisiana. And you can head on over to their site and use code Paperweights at checkout, and you'll save yourself some money and, make yourself in your house smell good. So, all right, Gary. So I told you I have a surprise for you, and we'll see how you do. Justin, you can feel free to answer these as well.
Oh,
wow. Got a couple of trivia questions here.
All right. Yeah. We'll see how I do. If it's deep trivia, I might struggle on this a little bit.
So it's nothing. It doesn't go into any of the plot lines of any books.
Okay.
So I tried to keep it as far removed from spoiling anything in any book
So
as
it's
I
just going to
could.
be random names.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Yes.
Great.
True or false? Sanderson hid the Cosmere from publishers when he first pitched Elantris and Mistborn.
True.
Yeah, that sounds true.
Okay. I do believe that is true. And the reasoning is because I think at the time he had a mapped out like 28 books.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his friends, who's probably on the Dragonsteel team there, was, hey, if you go to somebody and you're not a published author yet, and you say, hey, I got this idea for a 28 book series, they're gonna look at you and like, hey, why don't you just give us one first? And so that one was actually Elantris. That was his first published book.
Yes, and then I think he's slowly increased it from that 26 books, and it's well over 50 now that will be in the Cosmere. But he's now got the reputation enough that he no longer hides it, but is very blatant about the crossover now in his books.
Yes.
I don't know how he does it. It's like he just writes a billion books. It's like, how do you do this? Insane. Oh, I wrote 4 books over COVID. No.
I accidentally wrote 4 books.
Yes, the famous Kickstarter. And to answer your question, I think he said that he doesn't really actually write that fast in like words per minute, but he's consistent every day. And a lot of writers write when they feel like it, or will write when the inspiration hits, and he just writes every single day and never stops, which is pretty cool.
And I'm a big proponent of self-improvement and just that mindset of that, and that mindset of being consistent, that goes a long way with anything that you're doing in life. So any skill that you want to build or be successful at, being very consistent is going to bring you a lot farther than if you're just doing it whenever you just feel like it.
Yeah.
Of course.
So
And it's like him and Stephen King. They need a write-off to see how fast they can write books.
Yeah. Stephen King, I think, still is doing at least a book a year. It's just crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. All right, question number 2. How many novels are currently in the Cosmere?
Oh my goodness.
You have multiple choice here.
Okay.
12, 16, or 20?
20.
That'd be 20.
16.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as published, looking, and I checked it on Wikipedia, but Wikipedia could be inaccurate. So there's 7 Mistborn.
Yes.
There's 4
Stormlight.
That's
11.
11. Then there's 4 secret novels.
Only 3 of them are in the Cosmere.
Oh yeah, three secret novels, sorry.
Yeah, so that's 14.
That's 14.
And then
Elantris and Warbreaker.
Elantris and Warbreaker. So it depends, I guess, yeah, novels. If you count his short stories as well, Arcanum Unbounded, things like Mistborn Secret History, Shadows for Silence in the Forests of Hell, and several others like that, you're going to be probably over 20. But as far as full novels, yeah, no, I think you're right.
Yeah. And 16 is actually a very significant number in one of those worlds.
In the whole Cosmere, to be honest.
Okay.
It's a very significant number. But yeah, specifically in Mistborn, it's huge as well.
Yes. All right. Question number 3. True or false? Brandon Sanderson has written himself as a character into every Cosmere literature.
Some people say that Hoyd is really just Brandon. But I don't think he's ever said that. So I'm gonna say false in that. Or do you mean just like aspects of himself in each book? Because like I know Dalinar there's aspects of Dalinar that are based off of himself.
That's every author, so I don't think he means that.
Yeah, I was going with the Hoyd.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that just because Hoyd is like such a storyteller, that Brandon really pictured himself as Hoyd.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen an interview or a word of Brandon on that, but like he's been talking and doing interviews for so long, I'm sure it's so very possible he could have said it at one point.
So do you say true or false? If we're
Okay.
assuming,
I'm saying false.
Yeah,
I don't think he
I'll go
did.
false as well.
okay, yeah, there are some where so there are some of the stories that Hoyd actually doesn't appear in. So false
Okay, cool.
false is the answer on there. All right. Question number 4 is another. So the other two, I have two more questions. They're both true or false. True or false? Brandon's famous saying, "Rapho," means rest and fight odium.
False.
Justin?
Yeah, I'll go false.
All right. What does it mean?
Read and find out. And it's a term that he inherited from Robert Jordan
Oh
when
yeah.
Robert Jordan passed away, because that was his coined phrase when people would ask about the Wheel of Time. And then his widow, his widow and editor, gave him the Raffo bracelet a fan had made Robert Jordan and said, "I give you the Raffo now." And now Brandon uses Raffo all the time.
I forgot that Jordan used it.
Yeah.
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 And you had to read a
Crazy.
lot to find out. Should have
Yes.
had read a lot to find out.
Yeah, I think Justin did too. We just last two, so 2023 and 2022, I did a reread of Wheel of Time. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on book 8 for the first time through. So
okay,
Nice.
yeah,
nice. Those are fun.
You're starting to get to the slog. It
that's
gets
what
better.
people
It
tell
gets
me.
better. It gets better.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited.
Awesome.
It's
All
fun.
right. And the last trivia question, true or false? Weaknesses, limits, and costs are more interesting than powers is one of Sanderson's laws of magic.
It's true.
It sounds true.
That is true. It's his second law of magic, which is very interesting as a writer to have laws of magic systems. So, like,
Mhm.
Sanderson to me does a really good job. And I think most people would agree. He clearly defines a magic system. And then, like, most of the time when he defines it in the beginning, anything later that he does is confined to what he defined it as at the beginning. I don't know if he ever goes, man, I shouldn't have put that limitation on it. But he does some very interesting things with within the rule set. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because like Superman is boring because he can do everything. Only when like Kryptonite and he's all like powerless or whatever is he interesting. That's why people love Batman.
yeah, I guess you're right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he said that like superpowers, he likes to write something that is interesting to him, and he does, like you said, boring. If it's boring, he won't write about it. And so for him, he's like the most boring superpower is flying, because you just right. And then he flew up to the mountain, and then he flew over here, and he's like it was whenever he has to do flying, he's got to find a way to make it interesting to him.
Yeah.
So for those who have read Stormlight, that's changing gravity direction, so you're actually falling in that direction, or Mistborn when you're pulling and pushing on metals. It's never true flying.
Yeah. And if you ever play D&D, once the party gets flight, it's like, well, traversal is just not fun anymore. There's no puzzle I can throw at you. You just fly over it.
Yep.
Yeah. And just so you know, Gary, Justin and I and a few of our other friends, we meet weekly and play tabletop role-playing games. So
Are you guys excited for the Stormlight RPG?
Yeah, I probably will pick it up. I'm very curious how to do shard blades because it seems like it's just like, oh, your character's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as you get hit in the core, the center of your body. You could lose a limb, but that's still pretty inconvenient.
Yeah, it's like up. How long are you just sleep and your limbs grow back? I guess I don't know.
Yeah, well, unless you're a radiant character, because they
Eh,
can survive a shard blade
that is
hit.
true.
But anyone else is pretty, or if you have I bet you'd need a growth a healer like Lifter Renarin on the team that can
Yeah.
fix even a shard blade
Have they said
wound.
what time period it's gonna be in?
Well,
The
it's
uh
Stormlight.
The
the RPG,
RPG? Yeah. Is it the
uh,
Radiance or is it like before the book?
they released some of the artwork, and Kaladin was in some of the artwork. Shallan was in some of the artwork. So I don't know if that means that's the time frame.
Okay.
But I would assume maybe.
So gotta read all the books before you can play the RPG, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's one reason
maybe.
why I haven't actually pushed to run the Mistborn RPG, just because I know a lot of people in our group aren't averse to reading Mistborn. They just haven't done it yet. And so like playing that, obviously it that's another thing that Sanderson likes to do is some of his spoilers as the world grows, the magic system grows into something different. So at earlier phases, some of the things that are being done are mysterious. And then once it's revealed that that thing, whatever it may be, is possible and was the cause of X, Y, and Z phenomena, then it becomes a spoiler, So you can't just like introduce all aspects of a magic system in the RPG and not get spoiled by it and
Yeah.
go
Mhm.
into the books and go, oh, well, that doesn't hit the same way.
I mean, if you just set it like before like the first book and you're just like, you know, so it's like the Lord Ruler's still around and all that stuff.
Yeah,
You could,
but still, I think so it'll still like Brandon really uses like he puts he puts characters into a position where they may not have access to their magic system. And so the plot becomes how are they going to get around it?
sure.
And an evolution of the magical system or introduction of something else is the answer to that. And so I think on these RPGs, to be true to the world, that those evolutions or those other systems have to exist in it and be able to be played and touched on. At which point it spoils the, oh, well, just do this. Does that make
And
sense?
I guess. I don't know. I think you could do it without being too spoilery, but just just the basic metals and even if you want to do Furokimi, it's not like it's that it's not gonna ruin the book that you know that there's another because that's in the first book anyway, so I don't think it would be too bad.
Yeah.
Like if it's like, oh, this underlying thing is the cause of all this other stuff that it gets crazy in the second and third book, then maybe it could spoil it. But if you just were doing heist as like weird people with some powers, I think you could do it.
Yeah. It's mainly like the back half metals and the twin born abilities that like you really would want to avoid, I guess. Because that's era 2 and a lot of spoilers there.
Which I haven't read, so I need to go on that.
Yes.
I think I just like the characters of the first one so much that I was like, I'll get to that one later. It doesn't have Vin or anybody in it, so
Well, so it's kind of cool because like Vin is referenced all the time in Era 2 as the Ascendant Warrior. Like she's now a character of myth and they revere her, right?
yeah.
Which is kind of a cool concept to see. But there's a couple of like crossovers where it makes sense. Obviously, without spoilers, a certain shard at the end of the first book still appears in Era 2. But I I wasn't as big a fan of Era 2 my first read through, but after my second read through, like I love it quite a bit. I think it's different, but it's very entertaining and great characters as well.
I'm pretty sure I own them, so I should read them. It just makes time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I absolutely love the characters. So I kind of think of it almost like a uh Sherlock and Watson, or Sherlock and Holmes.
Hmm.
Oh no, Sherlock Holmes, yeah. Yeah, Sherlock and
You,
Watson
yeah, you
type.
got it right the first time.
Got it right the first time for once. So I could kind of see was it Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr. Didn't they play
Yeah.
Yes.
them? So I could see a lot of times when I was reading through this era too, I could see uh just Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law playing as them. So Wayne, I think in era two has to be one of my favorite characters. And
Yeah.
the things that he constantly does, and I kept reading like some of his little quirks that he does. And I was just like, man, how does Brandon just continuously remember that he does these and just inserts them into these books so frequently?
I know Brandon, he was lamenting at the end of The Lost Metal, after writing The Lost Metal, that on his phone he has a notes folder that's literally titled Wayne phrases, just funny things that Wayne might say. And he's like, it's kind of sad because that folder is now closed and we're moving on to a new era. And he doesn't get to write Wayne's jokes and all the funny things he says anymore.
Yeah.
So he's going back to Mistborn?
Yeah, so not to be too crazy, but like Mistborn was originally pitched as a trilogy of trilogies, where he would write, because he'd never thought of seen a fantasy world where you jump forward through evolution, starting in like medieval and then working your way all the way up to a modern and futuristic era. And so he was going to do three, but he needed a break uh from the Wheel of Time, in between Wheel of Time books, and so he busted out the first Wax and Wayne book just for fun, in between those, and that was not the planned era two. So it became four eras, and then after he's like, okay, now I've got four eras planned. People are like, well, that puts you at 13 books. If you write three more, you'll be at 16. And so now he's pretty official. He's gonna do 16 Mistborn books total.
Yeah, I think that's why I didn't read it at the beginning, because it was just a standalone book. I was like, ah,
Mhm.
standalone book. Then it turned into a trilogy. I was like, oh, shit, I need to read them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, there are four in era two. So yeah, I'm excited to see that. And it is very interesting that concept. And he spoke about it of, it is kind of a dangerous thing for an author to do, where they take something that people love so much and then go, okay, I'm not going to continue writing in that same setting, but I'm going to jump years later and evolve the world into something similar
Yeah.
yet different. And if you go to Goodreads or any other site like that, and you look at the number of people that review the books, era one has a whole lot of people. And then in era two, each book just starts to have fewer and fewer people. So, he's not wrong, but also as uh fans like us, we really
7:45.
we get to see we just get to enjoy that
Yeah.
evolution.
I mean, it makes sense because, like, it's kind of insane that Lord of the Rings, there's thousands and thousands of years, but still, fantasy. It's like, okay, nothing's really changed.
Yeah, and I could definitely see how like you run that risk of each series getting less and less viewership, partially because the first Mistborn era has just been around for so long that people have had so long to read it. But I feel like era three will probably do a little bit better, just based off the title alone, and also because it's and this is the true Era 2. Era 3 is this is the one that was meant to be Era 2, and Wax and Wayne he just kind of wrote originally as a break, where this era coming up, Era 3, he's going to write all 3 books before he releases any of them. And that's how he wrote the first Mistborn trilogy, so that he can get all the foreshadowing in, so he can get all the connections in, and just make sure that it has a good arc over the 3 books before he publishes any of them, which will be cool.
Yeah, and also like it's kind of like the MCU problem. As far as you go on, each new person has to read or watch so much new stuff to get all the different contexts. Like it starts to feel like homework at a time. And you're just like, I don't want to read 15 books or understand these 5 books. So, like, I will say, having started reading Way of Kings, it's really nice how it's like just a clean slate, and like you doesn't like there are stuff that I probably won't get because I didn't read all the 12 Cosmere books or whatever I haven't read, but it still doesn't feel like you're missing stuff, which is nice.
And I think that was his goal as well. He wanted everybody to be able to enjoy most of these big series for what they are in themselves, and not really rely on, okay, what did I miss? And having read what I have read, which is just about all the Cosmere stuff, you really do, like, whenever something Cosmere related that's not indigenous to the world of the series you're reading appears, it's magical, it's mystical. And it's like, oh, well, that's cool. So you're aware that something else is out there, but it's not like completely overtaking and overpowering what's existing on the world and in that story you're reading.
Yeah, so far I think the only 2 books that he's really said it's probably important that you read other books before, I think, is The Lost Metal and the 4th Secret Project, which was The Sunlit Man. Those books you can read on your own, and I know people who have read those books without reading the stuff before, and they'll all say like, oh yeah, the story makes sense, but they didn't pick up on a lot of the impact. Like the Sunlit Man in particular has the emotional weight comes from the Stormlight Archive. The story itself is fine and action-packed and exciting, but some of those character moments that hit really hard, you're like, oh, that's much better because I read The Way of Kings, you know? And as far as the Lost Metal, which you just finished, that one really, that was the first one where he's like, yeah, I'm going all out on connections, and you're gonna see all these things from other books. But outside of those 2 books, I think really you can read any of them and be okay for now. But we'll probably see more of that as we go deeper into the Cosmere.
And so you said the word connections, which I don't know if you were just meaning in the improper noun or the proper noun, because in the Cosmere, connection is a proper noun.
Just connections between the series.
Okay.
is yeah, where I was going with that.
Gotcha. We can go down a whole rabbit hole of connection, identity, investiture. Which I mean, I guess we can mention. So any of the Cosmere books, there's the what powers the magic system is something called investiture, right?
Sure.
Just it's like, sure, whatever.
So metal in
Mistborn
or Stormlight in The Way of Kings.
Yeah. And so
I just don't know.
So
the books I've read have actually stated that, but
what was that, Justin?
So I don't know if any of the books I've read have stated that as a term or whatever, but I don't know. I probably forgot if it did.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know. There's literally tens of thousands of pages.
Yeah.
So, all right.
But
Do we want to discuss any more of the Cosmere, or do you want to jump into discussing the prelude of
The Way of Kings.
Yes.
Yeah. The prelude or the prologue
The
on this one?
prelude,
Okay, so the one with the
4,500 years before.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you like to touch on? Do you just want like a kind of a summary of what's going on, or
Yeah. So
can...
we can summarize it. Sorry, I got my little thing here. I
Of
actually
course.
made.
it's a weird thing because it's the first thing you read, and
Mhm.
it just doesn't make any sense. It's like, oh, this is really cool, but it's like I'll understand all this stuff later. It's just a weird thing he did. It's interesting because it's like it sets up that there's a lot of like crazy stuff in this world, but you
Mhm.
don't understand any of it.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think the purpose of that one was really to set up the sense of scale
Yeah.
that this book is going to have. Whereas if you started off with the battle where Kaladin is trying to protect the new recruit, that definitely is a smaller scale. So I think he wanted to give people who just pick up the book and start reading and see if they like it or not, a sense of like, this is how massive we're going to be going. We're talking like world apocalypse
Yeah.
level things, and then he jumps down to give you a bite of the action with the prologue, and then he introduces you to the main characters.
Yeah, and it's very effective, but like
Yeah.
it's just terms and people. You're like, oh, like a Thundercat class and stuff. And you're just like, oh.
Like, what is all this stuff? I need answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It and I think that's sorry, I'm tripping over words. I think that's a really good writing tactic where like if you get your readers to ask questions and then you can keep them reading to find them out as long as you don't lead them on for too long. You can be like, oh, okay, okay, okay. But who is so
Yeah.
and so's dad? Why are we on book 7 and we still don't know?
And I don't think you really know what happened even in this book. Like you kind of know at the end, like basically what happened, but I don't think you know for sure in this book.
Yeah.
What
Is
from
1,000
the
pages too
prelude?
much? Yeah, from the prelude, like you don't totally get a full explanation of what happened. It's still unknown to the characters because he saves it for reveals in other books, but you learn about like the recreants and you're like, okay, the knights abandoned, but how is that related to heralds?
Yeah.
And it's usually like small little conversations between like Adolin and an Ardent where they drop in little bits of theology and you're like, okay, that might be what was happening, but it doesn't really come out definitively and explain anything until maybe the end, where Dalinar has that final vision and you get a bomb dropped, but even then it doesn't really address all the stuff that happened in the prelude.
Okay. And just be careful not to do too much on
Yeah,
about the
sorry if that
story.
was
Yeah. Just because I kind of envision people listening along who are reading for the first time.
Of course.
But so far I don't think you've really dropped any bombs. Just be
things
cautious
happen in the
of
book.
building expectations of certain
Yes.
of people. But no, what I really like with the prelude is one of the things that you get is, you learn a few things that, all right, there's 10 heralds. You get the names of some of them, like Yezereza or Yezrian is the king of the heralds. He's still alive. You see that one of them, Talonel, is dead, and you find that like, okay, he Calic. So it's almost like it's the point of view of Calic, and he comes to the stone, and there's 7 swords in the stone. So he's like, all right, 7 of us have survived, one's missing, and here's the king, our king, Herald King, and he's telling us, hey, we need to just put our swords in here and walk away. and leave the other one as a sacrifice and break this oath pact, whatever it is. And so you kind of get a sense of, well, one, the heralds have lived for centuries, like they've been alive for centuries. And there's some type of cycle going on with this oath pact. And so it's like, all right, now it kind of like the wheel of time where it sets up, okay, here's one cycle of this thing that's happening on this world.
Yeah, it definitely does give you some Wheel of Time vibes,
Yeah.
for sure. That like as soon as I think the sentence that Calyx says in the prelude is he's looking at the hands of a dying thunderclass and he shudders. He'd been killed by hands like those before, so you're thrown into like, okay, this guy has died before and he's back. How is he here? As it goes into more depth about how they're coming to save the world every time an apocalypse happens, it lets you know that like, okay, well, he's maintaining his memories and he's being tortured in between. What is going on? It really does set up a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes it real interesting.
Yeah.
Like,
It hooked me.
where's this going? And then you get once you finish the prelude and you go to the next, and it's like Stormlight Archives, Way of Kings, 4,500 years later. Like, what?
I can't remember. Are there preludes in the other books of Stormlight?
I think it's just prologues.
Yeah, just prologues.
It'd be kind of cool if he like expanded or whatever with each prelude, but I guess we just would get a little tease.
Yeah, he kind of does with the prologue, which is it's really interesting how he does that. The prologue for each book is the same night, for all five books, which is cool. You just get different characters' perspectives of the events, which is super interesting.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
But I do know
it's been so long since I read the second and third book.
I do know that so book 5 does come out in December. And supposedly that's going to be the end, like that's supposed to tell a complete story on Roshar, which is the planet, and like one whole arc. And then the second 5 books is gonna be a time jump.
So, two things on that. The prologue for book 5 has been released. Sanderson dropped it. So if you're interested in seeing the final story of that night, it's from the point of view of a certain character that you see in the first prologue, which is pretty cool. I won't drop the names in case people consider that a spoiler.
It's just Dalinar sleeping. It's a really
Yes.
interesting prologue. Just dreams.
Yeah, it's his prologue. He got drunk and fell asleep. No, but then yes, there are 10 books in the Stormlight Archive. 5 wraps up the first arc, but it's not like he's been doing beta reading, and the biggest issue he's run into with beta reading is expectations not set up properly. A lot of people are considering this to be the finale, the same way Hero of Ages was the finale for Mistborn, and that's not the case. The time jump is only going to be 10 to 15 years later. So we're still going to have a bunch of the same characters. Sanderson's words, he said it's more like an anime arc that's coming to a close, instead of a real final absolute ending. So the back 5 books will still be on Roshar, still have many of the same characters. As long anyone who doesn't die in book 5 should be in book 6.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Some anime training. I mean, Way of Kings is super anime, so it makes sense to have a Shippuden. It should just be Way of Kings Shippuden. For all of our Naruto fans out there.
Yeah, so I don't know what else you want to talk about. I mean, kind of covered the prelude and kind of covered Cosmere in general.
I guess we can do one thing. We just give people anticipation. Who's your favorite character in The Way of Kings? The first book.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's so many great characters. Like I'm probably not that original with it. I know most people will say Dalinar or Kaladin, and I love them both. It's like probably I feel like Brandon, where it's like picking your children. Like I didn't write them, but I've been with these characters for so long. Um, just kind of a cop-out answer. Maybe I'll say Kaladin. Um, a lot of people say Hoyd as well, but
Wait,
yeah,
it's a weird one.
Wit. Yeah.
He shows up like 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he made an impression.
Yeah, I mean, he's cool. He's really interesting. You definitely get a sense, even if you haven't read the other books, that he's like a weird extraterrestrial being or whatever.
Hmm.
And what about you, Brandon?
Um, man, that's so I will say one of the ones that sticks out, and not necessarily one of my favorite characters, but a character that people might not go to, that sticks out a lot is I think the first, um, I forget his name and I forget his role, but he's the sleazy guy that runs Bridge 4.
Gaz?
Gaz, yes.
Okay.
Like he does some things that just like when I read it, I'm like, man, this guy, like his character is so sleazy, it's just so memorable.
Yeah.
Or yeah, memorable. It's
Yeah.
easy
No,
for
I
me
got
to
you.
remember. Um, but the easy answer is Kaladin,
Hmm.
just because why not? Like he
Hot,
just he's cool.
hot take. I'm not the biggest Kaladin fan. Like, I like him, but he's kind of like
Some people
not
have a hard time with his
not
depression.
generic, but he's just like the hero character, and like he's really good as the hero character, but he's not quite as interesting as the other characters to me. Mainly because in book one he doesn't do too much. He's just in the bridges and does. I mean, he does a lot,
Mhm.
but he's not super interesting. I really like Shallan. She's really cool. You don't get too much of her in this book, but I remember I've only read the first 3. I just remember really liking her a lot, and her mentor is cool. Yasna.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I really like their storylines, even though it's not super the point of this book, but it's really interesting that they're included, just to kind of give you a taste for book 2.
I will say I didn't really like Shallan or Yasna until book 2. And when I first read book 1, when I was reading, all I wanted to do was get back to Dalinar or Bridge 4. Like I was just like, why do I care about these women doing this?
Well, what I think is interesting is Sanderson said that when he was writing books, his editor gave him some really good advice, and it was that make every chapter somebody's favorite. Um, it doesn't have to be the mass audience, but somebody should be like, that's that's my favorite chapter or my favorite character. Um, and it's crazy because there are people out there who do not enjoy reading Shallan. There are people out there who do not enjoy reading Kaladin, with the mental health aspect of things. And uh, but there's always people who will say that that's their favorite character. And so it feels like there's something in there for everyone, no matter like who's coming in. You're gonna like some chapters more than others, but there's no chapter that everyone universally disagrees is terrible, you
Yeah,
know.
there's no character I don't like reading about. I will say Kaladin's flashbacks, he could have cut like 2 or 3 of them. Like it's kind of like I want to reread. It's like, all right, I get it. Like you don't have to like show me every step of what happened.
Sure.
Because like it's pretty simple story. It's just like we're gonna just like take 10 or whatever flashback chapters to do.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
I have thoughts on that too.
Yeah.
I'll save them just because it does go into the plot. So I'll save it for our discussion on the certain sections. Um, I do have a question here. So I was planning on dividing each of these books, doing 5 episodes on each one, just part one, part two, part three, part four, and five on each book. Um, except for book one, every book it ends up being rough between 200 and 300 pages per part. Now, book one, for some reason, part five is like 40 pages, and part three is like 350 or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, do you have, just off the top of your head, do you think that like is a reasonable split on the books, or did you have any other suggestion?
You're talking about the books within the Way of Kings, or are you talking about the books, whole books like Words of Radiance, Oathbringer?
Yeah, so we're Justin and I are going to be
Mhm.
reading through all of the Stormlight Archives books. And
Mhm.
so one, two, uh Edge Dancer, three,
Sure.
Dawn Shard, then four, and then five when it comes out. And so we're dividing each of the large novels
Mhm.
into just reading like one part for each
Yeah.
episode discussion.
That's how I've seen most people do the reviews. They'll like do, and book clubs as well, is like you read a part and then you talk about it, read a part, talk about it. I think there's more than enough substance in each part to have
Yeah.
a conversation.
We could maybe split part three and like and then like do part four as well in the epilogue.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
to give it a little bit more time, or we could just have a large part three discussion.
Mhm.
Part three or part five? Which one's bigger?
Let's see.
I mean, part
Part
four.
part four is like 200 pages. Part
Part,
five is like 40 pages. With the epilogue, whatever.
yeah.
Figure it out.
Well, yeah, but not theoretically. Words are hard. Tentatively, we're just gonna do parts one, part two, part three, four, and
And
five.
I guess each of them will do their interludes or whatever.
Yeah. Well, we'll end with the interludes at the end of each part.
Makes sense. Interludes, the interludes are weird. They're fun though.
They're fun, but like whenever you get to the end of a part, you're like, man, I really want to know what happens next. And you get this new place, new perspective, new character, and you're like, what is this?
Guess we need to learn about this lady and her traveling merchant master. Sure. Like
Yeah.
they're cool, but it's just funny.
The interludes are more insightful the more Cosmere aware you are, I think. Yeah, they can become more fun. So are the epigraphs at the beginning of the chapters.
Well, yeah, you get to learn who did all those, which is fun.
Yep. Also, Cosmere related, at the end of books, the Ars Arcanum is written by a character from White Sand, Chris.
Mhm.
So she is the person that writes all the Ars Arcanums. So if you didn't know that, Justin,
Yeah.
now you do.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the Ars Arcanum is in world text. It's not written by Brandon. It's written by somebody in the books.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, maybe she'll show up.
Oh, by the way, did you get a little did you do all the boxes?
I
Like,
did.
your little
Yes.
bridge for satchel,
Yep.
your
I
little
did.
night blood letter opener.
Mhm.
Nice.
Yep. Have them in the other room. Yeah, figured out how to turn the satchel into a backpack, which is how I'll typically wear it, but it's really tight. They need longer string, longer threads, ropes,
Yeah,
straps.
straps.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just did the books. They're all still in their shrink wrap because I'm like, oh, I have so many other ones to read, but so I'll buy them anyway. But
Yeah, that's what I started off with, just the books, and then I ended up buying individually the Stormlight box and then the
Mhm.
Sanderson box because I wanted a hardback copy of Long Chills and Casto,
Mhm.
which is a fun read.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah,
short,
it,
but a fun read.
it was good. I did back all of them. And there's definitely like I think some boxes do have more value than others in them for sure. But I did enjoy like the Mistborn book holders. Those were pretty epic.
didn't you
Yeah,
just do another Kickstarter for like the leather bound or whatever?
The leather bound, yeah,
yeah,
for
Leatherbound
Words of
Words of
Radiance.
Radiance, along with you could add on the Secret Project Book 5
Hmm.
on there as well. So
Yes.
yeah, he got me with that one. I backed that one, and I did not do the one with the numbered signing, but I did buy the signing with a hardback of Book 5 and Way of Kings Prime and whatever else comes in there. I'm an edge dancer. I don't know what uh radiant class or order you're in if you
I
associate with
think
one.
I was a Truth Watcher, the same one as Renarin, but it was like 47% Truth Watcher, then 44 or 45% Windrunner, and then all the other ones were not too far behind that. So uh just barely edged out Truth Watcher.
So I've been thinking about this. It's weird to me that people will really um associate themselves with a specific order in any of these books. Uh,
Hmm.
but I think there's people that will associate with the ideals that each order adheres to and what they stand for. And then there's others that will associate themselves with them purely based on the abilities that are granted
Yeah.
to that certain order.
Sure.
I mean,
They want to fly.
I think it comes from Harry Potter. Like I'm Gryffindor. So you just transfer it over. That became a big thing.
It's a good way to engage your fandom. If I was an author, I would definitely try to get a test made, get
Yeah.
people excited about your books, create more buzz.
Yeah, that works. And like I just finished a read through on the podcast for Harry Potter, and I still don't have any allegiance to any of the houses in Harry Potter. It's just like, sure, I'm Gryffindor just because it's the protagonist, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Slytherin.
Ooh.
It's like
You just want to talk to snakes.
Exactly. That must be it.
really there's only two houses. Like you're really gonna associate yourself with Gryffindor or Slytherin. And, you know, you might some people are like, no, I'm really this one. It's like, yeah, but if you're Hufflepuff or Ravenclaw, then you're still anti-Slytherin, so you're pro
Yeah.
Gryffindor anyway.
I mean, if
Yeah.
she really wanted to make some money, she would just make another book with like a Hufflepuff main character and boom. 'Cause people would be like, oh my god, Hufflepuff. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I don't even remember all the different houses. I know one you can fly, so that one's cool.
Yeah, those are the Windrunners.
Yeah.
Yeah, then there's the
And Skybreakers as
The one
well.
where you can like slide on the ground with that little girl, I forgot her name.
that's
That one's
Lift.
cool. Yeah.
Edge
She's an
Dancer.
edge dancer,
Yeah.
which was what my test gave me. Um, and then interesting, like bondsmiths, there's only only a handful of people can ever become a bondsmith, which you'll find out, which is an interesting choice. Um,
It
so
makes sense when you learn more about them, but yeah.
yeah. So
Not all orders are the same in number.
yeah.
Sense.
Well, I'm excited to like it. The last time I read a Stormlight Archives book was in 2020 when Rhythm of War came out.
Mm.
So I am excited to get back into it, and see what connections I can make now with the Cosmere. Because especially after reading the secret novels and finishing up Era 2 of Wax and Wayne, sorry, Era 2 of Mistborn, also known as Wax and Wayne novels. So it'll be an exciting read through, and you know, maybe you can listen along with us and then join us on another episode at some time in the future, Gary.
Yeah, of course. Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah. A lot of connections you can make in the first Way of Kings book. So it'd be cool to see what you guys pick up on
Yeah, and what we choose to it'll
to
be
talk about.
interesting. Yeah, it'll be interesting on which ones to point out.
Hmm.
Because some of them, just by skimming through after reading some of these other books recently, I was like, oh, okay. Um, can be major spoilers for other books.
Yes. Like the prologue has a major spoiler connection if you point it out for Mistborn, the first book. So yeah, gotta
So
be careful not to point that connection out.
yeah. So we will do our best. But hopefully, well, we don't have as many listeners right now. So there won't be too many people that'll go up in arms unless somebody goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe this podcast revealed this information," and then it goes viral, and then
Also,
we're
the thing
popular.
is, if it's like a connection to another book, they're gonna have zero context for it. Like, this name is this name. You're like, oh my god. Then you're gonna forget about it, and you're gonna be like, read the book and be like, I don't know. Like, I
That's
don't
true
know.
too.
Those type of spoilers, I don't think people will care. But it's like, it was just Bob was actually Dylan. You're like, oh my god. It's like, okay, you move on. And it's like, you read that book and you're like, don't even remember that. I don't know.
Mm.
I mean, I guess you like if you did something crazy like spoil the end of Mistborn or something, then yeah.
It might be along that lines,
Really?
the
In the
spoiler.
prologue?
It not necessarily spoiling the end, but spoiling something, a detail about the end.
Oh,
It's
I'm about to read it closely
yeah,
now.
yeah. Have you read Mistborn's Secret History?
No.
Okay. Mistborn's Secret History is a companion book for the first trilogy, covers all of the three books from a certain perspective that I will not name until you read it, but it's has a big reveal that is connected to the prologue of
I think you froze.
Hey, Chris.
The prologue of Way of Kings is what I think he was about to say.
It was too spoilery. We had to cut him off.
I think Sanderson was listening in with the FBI or something. His
yeah.
eye,
There you go.
just the way he's looking there. Hey, welcome back. You froze.
Well, thank you. Yeah, sorry about that. I could hear you guys the whole time, but
Okay.
yeah, we'll leave it there.
Yeah. Is that a published thing or is it like a web thing?
It's published.
Secret Vision?
Mhm. Yeah, I can't remember if you go to like get it off of Audible, you could get it maybe by itself. I think Secret History you can buy by itself, or it's also in Arcanum Unbounded, which is a collection of short stories that happen in the Cosmere as well.
If
Okay.
and if you don't have a copy of Arcanum Unbound, I can lend you mine.
Yeah, I don't.
There's other short stories in there as well. which are pretty fun. So, all right. Well, I know, Gary, you've got obligations that you have to get to. I appreciate you taking out a portion of your morning to come
Yeah.
on here and talk to us. It was fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. And guys, enjoy these books. I'm excited to see you guys get through them and hear your thoughts on them.
Awesome. All right. Any last thoughts, Justin? Last words?
Yeah, I'm excited. It's a good book. I'm excited to get into it. I remember it being probably my favorite, probably second favorite Sanderson book, because I think the first Mistborn's my favorite. I've read that one like 5 times.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think this might be my 5th time reading Way of Kings. And I still just there's so much in it. I don't remember a whole lot of details. I remember a few big points.
Might be a little too long, but it is very impressive novel.
Yes, it is very impressive. So, all right. Well, thank y'all for both being here this morning. If you're listening or watching this on YouTube, the little buttons down at the bottom, you can like, you can follow, you can share, subscribe, any of those things. Those are all free, and it helps us. And it helps you get your friends listening to the things that you're listening to. And so you could talk to them about the things you're listening to with the people that are talking about the things that they read with each other that you also like. And it just goes into a whole rabbit hole. But yes, the more people that talk, I think that's pretty cool. Instead of people just shutting themselves up and consuming, and not, relating things with others. I'm a big proponent of connecting with other people and common interests, and bridging our differences through our interests. And it's a podcasts and books are a fun way to do that. And so go ahead and do that. Then hit up our sponsor, Mudcat Whiskers, at mudcatwhiskers.com. Don't forget to use code Paperweights at checkout to save yourself some money. And we will see y'all back next week when Justin and I cover part 1 of The Way of Kings.